So, from today to 10 years from now, I'm going to encourage you to think about the next 10 years as your AI decade. How do you embrace AI and think about AI so that you become AI curious? You look for ways of leveraging it in your life. You look for ways of integrating it in your great life and great practice. You learn and share with others. And you pay attention to how other people are strategically thinking about this because it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. It's just going to move quicker and faster than you ever imagined.
Welcome to Great Practice, Great Life by Atticus Incorporated. What if you could hang out with successful small and solo law firm attorneys, ask them about their successes and failures, their business strategies and mindset habits, then take an insight or two to guide your own growth in your practice? Each week, Steve Riley shares an in-depth look at how to work less while maintaining high client service standards, reduce your stress levels while growing your income, and find time to make changes when you are time-starved. Steve is a lawyer coach for more than 20 years and a former trial attorney. His goal is to provide strategies to help you balance your lives and grow your practice. Now, here's Steve.
Hi, it's Steve Riley. Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Today, I'm talking to you about the 3 challenges of embracing AI, the steps to get your law firm future ready in your practice today. So I have the privilege of being solo in today's episode. I have no adult supervision. It's just you and me talking about you, your practice, and the future. That's what today is about. Now, I know the topic of AI is overwhelming. And if you're a solo practitioner, you're a team leader, if you're in a team, the question starts to become, how do I cope with the growing pressure of AI? Now, the first time I talked about AI was probably 2012. And when I first discussed it, and we'll put a link in the show notes about a YouTube video where I made 5 predictions about the legal industry in 2012. And I'm not too far off. Those predictions were pretty much on the money. And you'll see me with different color hair and more of it. So it's a fun YouTube video to watch. But the question really is about you and how to think about AI. How do you, with everything else you're dealing with, how do you make AI work with your practice when you're feeling overwhelmed 99% of the time? I mean, how can you squeeze in another darn thing to learn in your practice? And that's really what I'm here to talk to you about. You're trying to grow your practice, you're trying to stay competitive, you're trying to really be forward thinking while at the same time you feel like you're running as fast as you can on a treadmill. I totally get it. I totally get it. Our goal is to help you in this particular episode shift your thinking a little bit about how to wrap your brain about AI and your practice. Now, let's begin with the first issue. I want you to think about AI as both an opportunity and a challenge for you. It's really kind of hard because externally you're trying to figure out how to make sense of AI. How can artificial intelligence growth help you in your practice? And you're really not even sure which tools to try. Should I do this? Should I do that? I'm not really sure. And the second you open up your phone, your browser on the internet, all kinds of different ads and things are flung at you about AI, including today's podcast. So there's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of noise and a lot of confusion. So part of it's where to go. Then you have the internal issue of being uncertain and skeptical. Like there's always something cool, always something new. How is this particular tool, AI, going to help me? Is it going to help me? Is it a threat to me? Is it going to impact my ability to practice? Will it eliminate my ability to practice? Will it make me compromise ethical standards? I mean, well, how do I deal with this? And then the third problem that a lot of people have is a philosophical one. How does AI align with my personal, ethical, and professional values? Like, how does this improve the trust of my relationship with my clients? How does it improve the quality of my service rather than work against them? So you got a couple of different issues going on in your head when you think about it. Everything from, okay, I hear I need to do something, to internally, how do I cope with this and how do I think about this? Because I'm pretty skeptical about the whole thing, to philosophical of how do I make it align with who I am as a human being and my practice. Now, the flip side of this, while the AI brings a lot of opportunities to us, it also brings some challenges. So, my goal is to help frame three core challenges or three big challenges and have you think about them so AI will not be as intimidating. Now, my experience is, like I said, I've been thinking about AI, I've been talking about AI. Last year at the summit, I did a major presentation about AI. I've been teaching, or not teaching, but facilitating the Growth AI class for Atticus. I just did another presentation for a bar association on it. I've done a couple other podcasts with a chief judge, a chief appellate judge, with a innovative thinker. So there's a lot of reading and thinking I've done about this. So my goal is to synthesize that and kind of give you a quick, down and dirty action plan that allows you to do a couple of things today to start integrating AI into your life. Now, I know the whole concept around artificial intelligence can be intimidating. The good news is you don't have to take everything at once. By approaching AI with small, practical steps, you can turn it into a tool that's going to be helpful and aligned with your firm's needs. So I'm going to walk you through the three challenges, but as we do that, I just want you to think about one question. Is there somewhere in my practice or life that I'm frustrated with doing something that I think I can do quicker, faster, and cheaper? And that's what I want you to think about as we go through these challenges, because at the end of the day, one of the things that AI does brilliantly is do things quick, fast, and cheap. But the question is, what things should it be doing quick, fast, and cheap? So as I walk through this conversation, I just want you to have that kind of playing in your background as you're thinking, where could I use this possibly to do things that are quicker, faster, and cheaper? Now, with that being said, let's go through our challenges and the plans to overcome each challenge. So let's talk about the first challenge, which is how to think about AI, how to think about artificial intelligence. Now, this is a core concept to this conversation. So I want you to kind of relax for a second and listen. I'm going to walk through four concepts that I want you to think about and appreciate. And then you can either accept those as assumptions or accept those as premises to your belief system and your way of understanding AI. So, concept number one is human beings create tools for improving our lives. This is one of the incredible things about us as a species or a race. We do take things and make them more practical, more useful. We find things that help us make our lives better. Now, you can see this throughout history. I know I've tried to find some research on this, but about 2.6 million years ago, during the Stone Age period, there was evidence of tools. Now, there's debates about what type of tools were created when and where, but there's no question that there's evidence that as human beings, we started developing tools. Around 3500 BC, we created the wheel. Now, some people argue about whether that was a really great invention, a bad invention. It doesn't matter, but it was a tool to make life easier. The printing press was created between 1440 and 1450. And the question becomes, what impact did that have? Well, the printing press was a game changing invention that allowed us to prolifically create text and allowed us to drop the cost of books and reading. And it just was a profound change in our life. And then for most of us, we've been around with the creation of the microchip, the computers, the cell phone, and of course, the famous internet, which is probably about 20 years old now. So, all these things are tools. So, I want you to think about this. Each one of these concepts are tools, and they were created by another human being to make life easier. Concept two, not only do we create handheld tools, but we create ideas, values, laws, and systems that really are the foundation of our communities. Those are the things that allow us to play well together. So, freedoms are a human created invention. The US Constitution in itself is a human created invention. These are things that we've created to create the foundations of our communities. It's important to understand that as we play with this and we think about AI, the values that we live by will be tested. The things that we believe to be true and important and fair and equitable will be tested, just like every other tool that we have created in history. So, if you want to think about that from a couple of different perspectives, if you haven't seen the movie Oppenheimer, it's a great movie to go see because it's an incredible conversation around a very powerful destructive tool that the creator regretted, understood the sacrifice, understood what he was doing, why he was doing it, but ultimately probably regretted and lived with the rest of his life trying to undo the incredible, powerful tool that he created, or at least shape how it should be used. This will be no different for a lot of us because a lot of us will have concerns, considerations, fears about how AI is being used. Now, in addition to that, we live and operate in a system of capitalism. And capitalism in itself is a fertile ground for change. Now, at the summit last year, when I spoke about this, I quoted Joseph Schumpeter. So I'm going to ask you just to be patient with me because I'd like to read this quote. It's a very famous quote by Schumpeter, and it's from his book, Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy. And I'm just going to read the quote word for word. Maybe I'll stop and pause. We'll see how it plays out. Capitalism, then, is by nature a form or method of economic change, and not only never is, but never can be stationary. And this evolutionary character incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within, incessantly destroying the old one, incessantly creating a new one. This process of creative destruction is the essential fact about capitalism. It is what capitalism consists in and what every capitalistic concern has got to live in. Every piece of business strategy requires it. True significance only against the background of that process and within the situation created by it. So, what's my point about this? When you start to think about AI, you're trying to understand AI, you have to understand, you want to approach it from the perspective that capitalism is in itself a human created invention to allow fair trade, to allow innovation, to encourage, to encourage people to take risk to improve other people's quality of lives. The nature of capitalism by itself causes what Schumpeter calls creative destruction. So, as you think about AI is inside a system that's already designed by its own nature to creatively destroy and improve itself. That will make more sense when I start talking about concept three. Concept three is about the speed of change. Prior technology combined with AI and machine learning will cause a rate of change that we've never seen in our lifetimes. It will go so fast and so quickly, and is going so fast and so quickly that it's hard for people to comprehend what exactly is going on. So, just as a quick comparison, I'm just going to talk about this for a minute so you can appreciate this. One of the things that I found fascinating when I researched this was how long it took for certain social media platforms to reach 100 million users. Well, it's interesting. Google, which grew probably the quickest, took 14 months to great to a Google took 14 months to get to 100 million users. Instagram, 28 months. MySpace, for those that you remember it, 36 months. Twitter, which is now X Corp, took 38 months. Facebook took 56 months. The question for you as you're sitting there thinking about this is how long did it take ChatGPT to break 100 million users? 2 months. So Google did it in 14 months. ChatGPT did it in 2 months. Now, here's the thing that you want to consider is not only did it take only 2 months to to break 100 million users, but because of the nature of this technology, it integrates with other platforms. So any form of AI now is inside Google. Google has Gemini. Facebook, or which is Meta, has their own version of AI. Uh, Twitter has now its own version of AI, which I believe is called Grok, Grok, I believe. The Whoop fitness device I wear has ChatGPT built into it. And a lot of the CRMs out there, like Clio, MyCase, Filevine, are integrating ChatGPT or AI in their products. So it took 60 days roughly for it to be utilized by 100 million users. Right now, my guess is probably a billion users are being touched in some way, shape, or form by an element of AI. And that happened quickly. When I spoke at the summit in November of last year, 2023, I would say 10%, maybe 15% of the room knew what I was talking about. Now, without a doubt, 100% of our client base is well aware of what's going on and they're talking about it. Let me complete with concept four. And concept four is my favorite. Concept four is just crazy. And once again, I'm still talking about how to think about AI. I want you to understand these four concepts because when you start to think about how you integrate AI into your law practice, how you start to think about integrating AI into your life, a lot of this won't make sense for you until you understand how these four concepts play together. Here's concept number four. This is from my favorite futurist, or one of my favorite futurists, I should say, a guy named Ray Kurzweil. And Ray Kurzweil, in his book, The Age of Singularity, which he's now updated, has this great quote, and I'll read it to you. 2029 is a consistent date that I predicted for when AI will pass the valid Turing test and therefore achieve human levels of intelligence. I'm going to pause there for a second because there's some people that have argued that AI has already passed the Turing test. Google has made this argument. A couple other companies have made this argument. The Turing test is basically a test by which, when a human being interacts with AI, the human being doesn't understand that they're interacting with AI. They think they're interacting with another human being. So the ability of AI to pass itself off as another human being is really the core of the Turing test. So there's a couple different variations of it. That's kind of the argument about it. Here's the interesting thing that Kurzweil says. I've set the date 2045 for the singularity, which is when we will multiply our effective intelligence a billionfold by merging with the intelligence we've created. Kurzweil's argument is in the year 2045, the human mind, the human brain, will integrate with AI, and that's what he calls the age of singularity. Incredible, incredible premise. I don't want to spend too much more time here, but I just want to let you know Kurzweil has about an 85% success rate on his predictions. He's a brilliant guy, very, very wealthy, created a lot of incredible things. I'll put a link about him, just a brilliant man. So just to reframe this properly, the first challenge that we have is how to think about AI. And here are the four concepts I shared with you. Number one, it's a tool. As human beings, we've created tools to make our lives better. And that's really what we do. Concept two is that, like all other tools, it will test our values, our ideas, our systems, and what our communities think about it. It will be a disruptive piece of technology. And so, as lawyers, as people involved in the legal community, we're going to be very, very important. We're going to be critically needed by society. We're going to be critically needed to help think, shape, advocate, and argue for what is right, what is fair, what is effective. AI is going to test a lot of values, and a lot of people are going to make arguments that you may agree with and disagree with. You can't go to a position of right or wrong. You have to go to a position of advocating and trying to persuade. Concept three, it's changing. It's changing so fast that you have no comprehension of how quickly it's changed. In the past 12 months, it's changed so powerfully, so quickly. It's pretty much everywhere. My guess is in another 12 to 24 months, you're going to have an avatar on your phone that you'll talk to that will replace any need to interact with your apps on your phone. It's going to be crazy. You have no idea how crazy it's going to be. And then, of course, Kurzweil's prediction is that the human mind, the human brain, I should say, and AI will integrate by the year 2045. Now, some of us will be alive then. That's roughly 20 years from now. Some of us may not be alive then. So some of us will see during our lifetime the integration of the human brain with AI. Now, I have an eye disease. I don't talk about it much. There's not much to do about it. And the eye disease is going to impact my sight as I age. Neuralink, which is one of the multiple companies that Elon Musk has founded, has created a visor that, as long as my cerebral cortex is working, will possibly in the next decade allow me to see once I lose my sight. So this is pretty amazing to me because the speed of change is accelerating. That's a good and bad thing, right? So some of you are thinking like, oh my God, what a great solution it will be if the loss of my sight could be solved by a visor that I can plug into my, plug into my head, and it connects to a chip that has AI that syncs up with my brain. Could also be something that addresses Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's. I don't know. But it becomes a question about values. It becomes a question, is that the right thing to do? Is that something that we should do? So as you think about this and you look at what's happening now, there are a couple questions we're left with. Number one, as a lawyer, a team leader, will AI replace you? And we're still on concept one, how to think about it. My prediction is no. So I don't think AI will replace lawyers. I think lawyers who understand and use AI will replace lawyers that do not. However, I think as lawyers, our critical thinking skills, our ability to help people will become more important than ever before because we understand that AI is a tool that will, in theory, help improve lives. We understand that we as lawyers help shape ideas, concepts, and laws and value structures that support us living together in a community together. We understand that change is going to accelerate at a level that we've never experienced as humans before. And emotionally, a lot of us are not prepared for that speed of change. And we're also against the possibility that Kurzweil predicted that the age of singularity will occur where human intellect is surpassed by AI. And it's a very, very strong possibility that most of us will see that in the next 20 years. So, what's my point? My point is that you're going to have to figure out how to make sense of all of this. And I will be the first to concede it's not easy. So, here's some of the questions that I want you to consider as we work through this conversation together. How do we learn to think about AI, which is challenge one? How do we learn to think about AI? How do we use it to our advantage? How do we protect ourselves and our firms from the disruption to our practices? How do we help our families? How do we lead our communities during this time of rapid change? That, my friends, is challenge one. How do we think about it? How do we make sense of it all? What do we do? Hey, it's Steve. I want to just kind of jump in the middle of this episode to talk to you for a minute. If you are an Atticus member or if you're in our audience but not an Atticus member, one of the most impactful things happening in the legal industry, quite frankly, worldwide, is the use of generative AI. How is artificial intelligence impacting your practice. So we've started a course called Grow Your Practice with AI. If you're not part of this course and you're a member, jump in. It's included as part of your membership. However, if you're new to Atticus and you're trying to check us out and you're not really sure if it's a good fit for you or not a good fit for you, this is a perfect class for you. Once a month, we get together for 2 hours via Zoom, and we have a fantastic workshop on how to implement AI in your law firm. We have everything from thought leaders that talk about the big picture, how to strategically think about AI. More importantly, we have some fantastic how-to segments that you can immediately start using AI in your practice to do everything from summarizing depositions to improving correspondence to clients to improving your marketing. There's so many different ways that AI can help you grow your practice. In addition, we talk about trends. We talk about some of the ethical issues as they come across the US and how they're impacting practices. So if you're not already taking this course, jump in. I put some information in the show notes about it. So I would just encourage you, because if you're not getting behind the use of AI in your practice will be getting behind your competitors. So jump on this. Hope to see you there. Challenge 2. I'm going to recommend you create a strategic plan. And I'm going to give you some elements of the strategic plan right now. I'm going to walk through 5 strategies that I'm going to encourage you to look at and consider for your strategic plan. You may come up with some better solutions, but these are the 5 that I've come up with, and I'm going to recommend that you use as part of your strategic plan. Here's strategy 1. I'm going to encourage you to think about the next 10 years as the AI decade, the artificial intelligence decade. Because you're not going to be able to think about this in a 30-day window. You're probably not going to be able to think about this in a 90-day window. And trying to get this done in a year is going to be way, way too hard on any human being because there's too much happening, too much to think about. So what I want you to do is think about from today to 10 years from now, that you've got 10 years to think about, organize, and adopt AI in your practice and in your life so it works for you. And I'm going to encourage you to consider 5 things, 5 sub-strategies, let's call them, inside the AI decade. Here's sub-strategy number 1. Number 1, develop an AI mindset. And what I mean by that is to become AI curious. How can I use AI? What can AI do for me? How does it work? What will it do? Is it something that will make my life easier? Number 2, inside your practice in your life, how can you use AI to optimize things, which really is quicker, faster, cheaper, more effective, which was kind of the question I left you with when we first started. How do we make things quicker, faster, cheaper? AI is designed for quicker, faster, cheaper. At its current rate, it's perfect for quicker, faster, cheaper. The next level will be a whole other conversation, but right now it's quicker, faster, cheaper. Number 3, in your practice, I want you to think about being vigilant on ethical issues, court decisions, new laws, and trends, because you're going to see more and more of that occur. You're going to see the impact inside the legal community, not like a ripple, but like a giant rock dropping right in the middle of a pond. There's going to be ripples going everywhere, bouncing everywhere. You're seeing it now. People are not really sure. Judges aren't really sure. Leaders aren't really sure. How do we embrace? How do we integrate? What do we do with AI? The 4th thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is to learn, share, and collaborate with other people, because you're not going to be able to figure this out by yourself. One of the powerful things about being in a community like Atticus is that you can learn from each other and support each other. And 5, is I'm going to encourage you to start paying attention to some thought leaders. Really do the things like you're doing right now, which is listening to this episode and go, maybe I need to look at this a little differently. Maybe putting my head in the sand won't make it go away. Or maybe, hey, there might be a huge advantage here for me. Actually, it might be a huge advantage for my kids. It might be a huge advantage for my grandkids. The world's changing, and the world's changing quickly. How can I help them think about this and integrate this into their life? So from today to 10 years from now, I'm going to encourage you to think about the next 10 years as your AI decade. How do you embrace AI and think about AI so that you become AI curious? You look for ways of leveraging it in your life. You look for ways of integrating it in your great life and great practice. You learn and share with others. And you pay attention to how other people are strategically thinking about this because it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. It's just going to move quicker and faster than you ever imagined. Strategy two is more practical. And I hate to bring practical into such sometimes an esoteric conversation, but I really want to get practical here, a little nitty gritty. So let's be very straight. AI is here. And if you're in the legal industry, you have to comply with the new ethical rules. About 20 jurisdictions have come out with ethical rules. There's 50, there's obviously other jurisdictions that have not. The jurisdictions have come down in different ways, in different interpretations. Some have guidance, and the guidance is pretty broad based, like don't do anything stupid, be aware how AI works, and protect client confidentiality. I think it really distills down to a couple of key areas, and I just want to talk practically about this. So, regardless of your jurisdiction, one of the things I want you to be aware of is that you have to get client consent for the use of AI. So, if you have not updated your engagement letters, I'm going to encourage you to immediately update your client engagement letters to confirm and disclose to your clients that you're using AI tools, and those tools are designed to help better your representation of the client and that they're consenting to the use of those AI tools in writing. One or two sentences, because most of the more draconian or more direct bar rules, Florida, Pennsylvania, a couple other jurisdictions, are pretty direct. You have to have client consent. Now, I'm going to encourage you to consider that's client consent, not in just new cases, but in all cases. So that means if you have active cases going right now, you want to check your rules because you may be required to have your client's consent today in active cases where you've already been hired to the use of generative AI in their representation. So if you're working on a case and you're using generative AI to summarize an email, summarize a deposition, to write a brief, to write a contract, and you haven't gotten the client's written consent for the use of it, you may be in violation of the rule in your jurisdiction. Number two is that certain jurisdictions require competence and oversight. Pennsylvania, Florida are pretty aggressive here, where they're expecting you to have some level of understanding of AI and some level of competence around the use of AI. And that competence is ongoing. So from today to this point in future, you need to have some understanding of how AI works. So you actually now have an ethical duty in certain jurisdictions to be competent in the use of AI, to be updated, stay informed, and aware of the ethical standards and guidelines, which leads me to the next point. I'm going to recommend that you create a use of generative AI policy in your law firm. Now, those of you that are in the Grow with AI class, you probably saw Jennifer Felton's presentation on her generative AI policy in your law firm. If you're a member, I'm going to recommend that you go to the episode, and I'll put it in the show note link so you can watch this. But Jennifer does a really great 10-minute presentation and talks about how she created it and why she created it. The positioning of a lot of the bar associations is that they're trying to get you as a lawyer to be aware of how generative AI is being used in your law firm and making sure that your team is aware. So I'm going to put a little link for those of you that are members. If you're not a member, you can Google, or you can use AI to look for what your policy should be. Actually, I think Thomson Reuters has a really good article. I'll put a link to the show notes and the show notes to Thomson Reuters article on it. It's pretty good. Let's move to strategy three, how to profit or not lose money. Look, if you're in the contingency fee business, PI, disability, it doesn't matter. Are you in the fixed price business? Generative AI is going to be awesome because it's going to allow you to do things quicker, faster, cheaper. The ones that are going to have the really, really difficult time are the folks that charge by the hour. Goldman Sachs did a study that they're estimating 40% to maybe 45% of billable revenue inside of billable practices will be gone due to generative AI. I think it's an underestimated number. I think it's probably going to be closer to 50 to 60%. Here's how I want you to think about this if you're in a billable practice. When I was a young litigator, I would get assigned a 500, 600 page deposition. My job was to summarize that deposition for my boss, put together kind of a notebook showing them where there were certain things that they could do on cross examination and trial, showing where there's bias, showing them certain things in that deposition. Now, it may take me 10 hours to complete that. If I build it 200 bucks an hour, that's $2,000, right? You can do that in ChatGPT or CoCounsel in about 15 minutes. It's amazing. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't read it, you won't review it, you won't do these things, but I think that the billable hour practice is going to be so severely crushed by the new ethical rules around what you can bill in a billable practice that if you're in the billable practice and you're not paying attention to what's happening, you're going to be in a very, very difficult position in 1 to 2 years. So let me just review 5 areas very quickly to think about: deposition summary, legal research and writing, record reviews, drafting legal memos, contract drafting. So if you haven't seen Spellbook, I would encourage you to go to YouTube and watch Spellbook, how Spellbook works. There are going to be so many ways that some of the billable work that we used to do in law firms is gone. Now, does that mean that we're out of business? No. It means that certain ways that you generated revenue will be gone. So it requires you to rethink your business model. It requires you to rethink a lot of different things about your practice, which is really the purpose of this whole conversation. I want you to really think, how am I going to address this? What's my strategic plan? Now, we'll probably do another podcast on it. I would like to put together a panel in the Grow with AI class. I'd like to do some other things to get people thinking more in depth about it. I can't go much deeper today just because of time with this podcast, but I'd like to move to strategy 4, which is marketing your practice. Now, in our Grow with AI class, we probably have 90% of our members experimenting with AI from a marketing perspective. They're using it to write social media posts, to create simple, frequently asked questions, to do white papers, summarizing complex topics for clients to review. I think one of my favorite questions is taking a complex document and asking ChatGPT to summarize it like you're talking to an 8-year-old. It's amazing how incredibly quick and how incredibly beautiful some of these explanations are. Uh, Reviewing your website to give you feedback about how to improve SEO on your website, create websites, and design social media campaigns. So AI in itself is going to create a lot of really quick, fast, and easy ways to market. Doesn't mean that your content is good. It just means that your content's faster, quicker, and cheaper. Now, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. One of our coaches, I think it might be Lori Pulvermarker, somebody if it's not Lori, somebody else created this. It's called Elevating Marketing Strategies for Law Firms with ChatGPT. I'm going to put it in the show notes so you can click it, link it, and you can download it and check it out. But it's basically kind of a cheat sheet on how to use ChatGPT to market your law firm. Now, strategy 5 is probably the most interesting one for me. Team training. One of the things that's a big, difficult challenge in growing your law firm is training team. And the ability inside ChatGPT to create your own training process with a private ChatGPT is in itself amazing. Your ability to create videos, checklists, manuals, multiple choice tests, it's amazing what it can do. So I really think you're going to see the use of ChatGPT for training and for resources inside law firms to be probably the quickest and easiest to go to for a lot of us. So with that, I'm going to summarize those 5 strategies. Here's my point. All right, here's my point. I'm going to recommend that you create a strategic plan. Strategy one in your strategic plan is what's your time frame? My recommendation is to give yourself a 10-year process to think about this so you're not freaked out and you think each quarter at a time, how do I improve? How do I improve? How do I improve? So you have 4 quarters in a year. So every year you're having 4 major projects to improve your use of AI. Strategy two in your strategic plan, AI is here. Comply with your ethical rules. I cannot say that enough. It's it's not when you get a chance. The way the ethical rules work is in most jurisdictions, they apply now and they apply immediately. Strategy three, think about your business model, how to profit or not to lose money in the use of AI in your practice. Strategy four, think about how to use AI to market your practice. How can you use it to help your customer experience and your prospects? Strategy five, how can you use it to train your team? So that's my recommendation. Think about those 5 elements of your strategic plan. Challenge three, how do you embrace AI? Now, we've talked about challenge one, how to think about it. Challenge two, how to create a strategic plan. Challenge three is how do you in your life start to use AI? I'm going to give you some practical tips, just practical tips. Number one is if you don't have a subscription to ChatGPT, get yourself a subscription. It's 20 bucks. It goes on your phone and on your desk. I use it constantly. I don't use it to type into it. I talk to it. A lot of people use it as a super Google, like to search for stuff. I talk to it constantly. I'll dictate emails, memos, letters, whatever. I ask it questions. I argue with it. It's really very funny because I use it for a lot of different things. 2 things that I use it for that I'm going to pass on is just practical tips. Number one, inside my subscription, I created a private chat GPT that I'm putting all of my medical records in. This is a tip that I learned from a Dr. Peter Attia podcast. So I'm trying to compile and pull everything related to my medical records, all my blood work, all my prescriptions, anything that's related to Steve's health is getting dropped into this private chat GPT. So I'm really trying to figure out how do I groom it so it helps me do better data analysis of my own health. Everything from my Whoop to my medical records are going into it. The second private chat GPT I've created is called Steve's Great Life. So I'm putting all my goals, my content projects, anything, travel plans, anything that is interesting to me. I'm putting up into this private chat TP, and I'm having conversations with it constantly. And it's amazing how much time it will save me, and it's amazing how much it can do for me as far as figuring certain things out. Simple things like I'd like to take a vacation in March of 2025. These are the weeks that I have available. These are the cities I've been to. I have points with Hyatt I'd like to use. So, eliminating these cities, well, I'd like you to look at what Park Hyatts are there in the world that aren't in these cities, obviously, that might have rooms available during this time period and might be interesting to me that are not in the United States. So, that would be a search that might take somebody a couple of days to do or a couple of hours to do. I was done in 2 minutes using that. It was amazing. So it was incredibly how quick and efficient it was to find something. Now, if you're in a Microsoft environment, I would recommend that you invest in Copilot. And the drafting capabilities in Copilot alone is amazing. So I basically use Copilot to draft my emails. I use Copilot to read my emails. I use Copilot to set reminders. I use Copilot to go through data in OneNotes. I use Copilot to create memos, PowerPoints, and graphics very, very quickly. I'm going to recommend you start using them sooner rather than later because the quicker you wrap your brain around how these products work, how they can make a difference for you, the quicker you can start seeing other opportunities, how they can help you in your life and your practice. All right. As we start to wrap up, I'm just going to give you a couple of things to think about. As we start to wrap up, I want you to consider 3 questions. First, over the next 30 days, what's one thing I can do to be more AI curious? Question two, where in my life or practice could I use AI to do something quicker, faster, and cheaper? That was the question I asked you originally. Where can I do something quicker, faster, and cheaper? And three is practical, just very, very practical. Where can you make sure that you are in compliance with your ethical rules immediately? Now, I'm going to give you a couple of things to download. I'm going to give you the AI Decade worksheet so you can look at that. It's called How to Take Advantage of the AI Decade. I'll put in show notes two other podcasts I've done on AI. One is with Chief Judge Klingsmith, which I think is a fascinating episode with the judge talking about the use of AI in the judiciary. The other one is with Carla Johnson. And Carla does a great job talking about giving curiosity the credit it deserves, becoming more innovative with the use of AI. So I think Carla does a really good job of that. So if you're interested and you haven't heard those two episodes, I'll put them there. If you're a member and you're not actively participating in the Grow with AI class, it's included in your membership. So I'd encourage you to get caught up. We are going to do those. We've been doing them in 2024 once a month. In 2025, we'll be doing them once a quarter. But the courses that we taught in 2024 are available to all members. You can get them through the membership site. If you're not a member to Atticus and you're interested in purchasing a subscription to that, I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. I really don't know what the price is. I think it's pretty modest, but go ahead and check that out. So let's go ahead and pull this to a close. There's just a couple final thoughts I want you to think about. At the core of embracing AI is change in behavior. The first behavior you have to change is your own. You're going to have to work through the fears you have around the use of AI and start looking at less as an obstacle and more as an opportunity. You're going to have to work through that yourself because you're going to have to lead your teams and your communities with the use of AI. And my point with challenge one is AI at the end of the day is a tool, an incredibly powerful, virally spreading tool that's going to change the world in ways that we never imagined. But it's a tool, and that's one genie you can't put back in the bottle. There are there's a professor in Oxford in the UK saying that we need to regulate AI immediately. Well, Elon Musk and Sam Altman tried to do that with the product OpenAI, which is the owner of ChatGPT years ago, and they failed with it because what was once a nonprofit is now becoming a profit centered enterprise. I don't think this type of a product, I don't think this type of a technology is going to stay controllable. And when this professor wrote a book on AI, he said the UK government needs to get control of this and get control of it now. And I'm like, well, that's great. What will China have to say about that? What will India have to say about that? What will Russia have to say about that? So I don't think you're going to be able to control AI. I think you'll be able to influence the use of it. I think you'll be able to advocate for the use of it, but I don't think you'll ever be able to control it. I think the genie's out of the bottle. Number two, challenge two is coming up with your strategic plan. Create a time frame in which you're going to think and implement your plan. Start complying with the ethical rules. Start thinking about how do you integrate AI into your practice so that becomes an advantage, not a disadvantage for you. And strategy three is start learning how to use it, playing with it, starting to do silly things with it, like I'm doing. Because once you start to understand how incredible it is and how much fun it is, you'll start to see that it becomes more and more of an asset than a liability for you. And the quicker that you embrace and understand it, the quicker that you can start to use it in your practice in your life. So I just want you to think for a minute. If AI works and it works in a very powerful way, I want you to think about what your practice in life will look like where AI is fully integrated, allowing you to focus on high touch client service, strategic growth, making a difference for other human beings. And if you embrace AI thoughtfully, you can start being prepared for that future ready competitive practice that you've always wanted because it will allow you to do things quicker, faster, cheaper, in ways that you never imagined. So your future practice is waiting for you. How you get there faster is by starting to embrace AI and working through these three challenges so that AI can help you build that practice that you're dreaming about today. With that, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And thank you, as always, for being part of our Great Practice and Great Life. Thanks for joining this week's episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Please tune in weekly to get the next episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, like, and don't hesitate to share it with a friend who you think this episode could help. With that, thanks, and I hope you enjoy next week's episode.